Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. So today we are diving into something really fascinating, the hidden realities of the female life cycle. We're going to explore exactly how the body manages its internal systems, what happens when those systems start to change, and some of the critical, sometimes completely invisible risks that emerge later in life. Whether you're super familiar with this topic or just looking to connect the dots on women's health, this Explainer is designed to give you a really clear, direct understanding of the whole journey. Let's get into it. Now, our source material takes a highly unique approach right out of the gate. It speaks directly from the perspective of the ovaries themselves. It says, I carefully and responsibly control the production of estrogen and progesterone. I love this because it brilliantly humanizes a really complex biological function. Instead of getting totally bogged down in dry medical terms, we're invited to see the ovaries as this diligent, hardworking control center, just working tirelessly to keep everything in perfect balance. Here is our chronological roadmap for today. First, the hormone engine. Second, menopause and body changes. Third, heart and bone risks. Fourth, the silent threat, cancer. And finally, holistic health and prevention. Starting with Chapter 1, the hormone engine, controlling the balance. Okay, so when this hormonal control center is balanced, life is generally smooth sailing. But when it's off, when hormones are overproduced and the system struggles, you feel the impact immediately. Physically, the body's water balance breaks down. The kidneys literally struggle to expel water properly, which leads to noticeable swelling and water retention, usually right in the feet. And actually, it's not just physical. Mentally, during the menstrual cycle, this imbalance can trigger severe anger, extreme irritability, depression, and just a heavy sense of hopelessness. But here's the good news highlighted by our source. Modern medicine is incredibly effective here. Doctors can use specific medications to correct this faulty hormonal system and get you right back to that much-needed balance. Moving on to Chapter 2. Menopause and body changes, closing the shop. This marks a massive transition that usually happens between the ages of 45 and 50. The source uses this remarkably vivid metaphor for menopause, describing the ovaries as quite literally closing the shop. After decades of careful, everyday management, they gradually shut down operations. It essentially reverts the body to a state similar to before puberty. And the absolute most critical consequence of this shop closing is a drastic, permanent drop in estrogen. Estrogen is basically the primary fuel that's been running the engine all these years, and its sudden absence, it changes the entire landscape of the body. This drop in estrogen can trigger some pretty noticeable physical changes. The spine can curve, leading to posture changes, breasts may lose their firmness and sag, the skin often becomes noticeably dry, and muscles can suffer from just a general stiffness. But, and this is a really important caveat from the source, these are potential reactions, right? They are not absolute guarantees for every single woman. Individual experiences vary wildly here. But the real dangers are actually invisible. That brings us to Chapter 3. Heart and bone risks, the postmenopausal shift. I want you to consider this staggering number, 40 times. According to the source, in a woman's youth, estrogen acts as this incredible, active internal shield. It prevents fat from accumulating in the arteries, effectively protecting younger women from heart disease. Because men completely lack this estrogen shield, young men face a 40 times higher risk of these heart-related diseases compared to women of the exact same age. But once menopause hits and that shop closes, the estrogen shield completely drops. Suddenly, all that amazing protection is gone. Post-menopause, a woman's vulnerability to heart disease accelerates rapidly. It catches right up to the exact same risk level that men face. It's a profound shift in internal health dynamics, and it often goes completely unnoticed until a severe problem pops up. And alongside the heart, the bones face a massive hidden risk too. Osteoporosis. The source draws a brilliant comparison to explain just how dangerous this really is. Think about simply slipping and falling on a carpet. In your youth, when your bones are strong, that fall might give you a minor scratch or a tiny bruise. You just brush it off. But in old age, as osteoporosis secretly weakens and hollows out those bones, that exact same minor fall on a carpet can easily result in a devastating, life-altering hip fracture. The external impact hasn't changed at all, but the internal structural integrity of the body has been completely compromised by that loss of hormones. Now for Chapter 4, the silent threat, cancer, the hidden danger. This is absolutely the most critical issue facing the ovaries. The source explicitly labels ovarian cancer as silent because in its early stages, it presents almost zero symptoms, none. But worse than that, the text stresses that standard pelvic exams, the routine physical checkups of a woman's internal health, simply cannot detect its presence early on. By the time the symptoms are finally loud enough to actually be noticed, the cancer has almost always advanced significantly. It is literally a hidden danger hiding right there in the control center. To put the sheer scale of this threat into perspective, the source pulls data from developed nations, using the U.S. as a prime example. Out of roughly 1 million women who pass away from various diseases annually in these areas, 1 out of every 100 of those deaths is specifically caused by ovarian cancer. That is a massive demographic impact for a disease that flies completely under the radar during standard preventative exams. Early detection is incredibly difficult, which makes awareness absolutely vital. So, how do we fight back against these hidden risks? Let's look at Chapter 5, Holistic Health and Prevention, Protecting Body and Spirit. The text outlines a truly holistic preventative lifestyle, blending strict medical advice with deeply rooted spiritual practices. On the physical side of things, it advocates for doctor-prescribed calcium to fight that osteoporosis we talked about, alongside a balanced diet and regular exercise to manage weight and heart health. But it goes further than that. According to the source, integrating spiritual practices like daily prayers, specifically mentioning Islamic practices like namaz and dua, helps prevent the mental burden of aging from becoming overwhelming. The text argues that women who follow this combined physical and spiritual path just live more peaceful lives, while those who ignore this balance might find their later years consumed by despair. The source concludes by pointing out a pretty harsh irony in modern behavior. We willingly spend thousands upon thousands on our faces, our hands, our feet, the whole outward appearance, yet we entirely neglect our internal health and cleanliness. The text connects the physical early detection and treatment of diseases with Islamic teachings on internal and spiritual purity, basically suggesting that true health requires us to look inward. So I'm going to leave you with this question to ponder today. Are we so hyper-focused on the outside that we are completely ignoring the internal realities that ultimately save our lives? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this structured look at the female life cycle has given you a clear understanding of the science, the risks, and the holistic preventative measures we found in our source material. Until next time, keep seeking out the hidden realities.